kidding. This is too much to handle, right? But the truth is that because there are more than 10,000, how many of those do we actually use out of those 10,000? Not even close to the 10,000, at least not commonly. There are some that we use on an everyday basis all the time. What is the purpose of phrasal verbs, or in this case, compound verbs you can find, okay, or use the same way to describe it? What is the purpose of them? Guess what it is in Spanish? Just a verb. Yeah, it's like almost a more explicit way to say, or more detailed way to say exactly a specific verb. But sometimes it's literally just the same exact verb as if you use it in Spanish. What's the difference in the beauty of Spanish? Yeah, you chose the right language. I hate to break it to you, but English is hard, okay? One of the beauties of the many beauties of Spanish and Romance languages, like, what are other Romance languages? French, you know, it's she's like, oui, oui, right? What else? Italian, Portuguese, very good. They have similar structures, okay? Not all the same, because I don't know where that tilde goes in the French and then this way. I have no idea. Some of my family members could tell you, but not me. So when I talk about these verbs in Spanish, it's very easy. All verbs in Spanish end with what? Oh, I was afraid. I was like, you guys speak Spanish, right? Okay, ar, ir, okay? Oh, it's so easy. Now, you ask someone who's learning Spanish to say, now we're going to conjugate. Oh my goodness. Vamos, fuimos, voy. That has none of the letters from ir, right? We have irregular, but they all end in ar, ir. And we don't add any preposition or any additional thing to understand the meaning, which is, what does that mean? And this is a very good lesson. We get to recycle, just like we get to recycle prepositions, right? For example, I can say, encender. Name some things that I can encender. La luz, el carro, el cerillo, okay? Cigarro, la estufa. Isn't it beautiful? You just use encender, and there you go. Now, if I change this to English, what do I do with a light? Turn on or turn. Yeah, we got to use two words, okay? If it's a switch, I can say switch on, switch off, right? What do I do for a candle? Do I turn on a candle? Light, right? Just light. So it's like, well, why don't you use a preposition? I don't know. I just teach the language. I don't invent it, okay? But you get the idea, right? And so I can't use the same one as I do for turn on something electric, for example, as using it for lighting a candle, right? So buckle up, guys. It's going to be fun for phrasal verbs. Okay, so something that we're going to look at is, I always like to show people what the equation is behind things in grammar, okay? Now, I don't mean what the equation is because it has to do with math, because not only some of you will leave, I will also leave. I don't like math. I have to use it, but I don't like it. That's why I chose English as my major, okay? So I want you to take a look at an equation that we use for a lot of things in grammar. It's adding two things, three things, four things sometimes together. Now, there are other ways to create phrasal verbs that are not necessarily just the verb and a preposition, but almost always is it a preposition. It would be very strange cases not to be, okay? So what you're going to write in your notes, because I see very studious people in here, all right, with notebooks. You notice the ones who don't have notebooks are the kids. They're like, I got it. I'm going to remember all of this, right? Oh, there was a little boy sitting in the back who got up and left. He was in my last one. He knew all the answers. I was like, you get all the points. So I have a verb plus, what did I say goes after it? Preposition, and I'm going to put a little S there because it could be more than one. And every time you add an extension to that, an additional preposition, it's going to change the meaning. Yay, aren't we so excited? It gets more complicated, right? I'm going to see if all of you stay till the end of the talk. You might leave. Okay, so there is a specific way that I like to teach this in my classes. I think it's very good for our brains, and I am a very visual person myself, to have a picture of some things, right? You remember pictures more. So I love to use diagrams, infographics, all of those types of things. But we're going to use one that I have here, all right? What type of a diagram is this? Come on. What do we call this kind? Those of you who have gone to my other workshops, I'm very disappointed. A Venn diagram, okay? So we're going to cross over. It means that there's something on this side distinct from this side, but they share something in common, right? Why do I like to use this for phrasal verbs, okay? Before I explain this, okay, I want you to tell me if all phrasal verbs, okay, are figurative, or if you want to call them metaphoric or non-literal, okay, or all of them are literal or physical. Can I do physically every phrasal verb that I say? No. They're like, yeah, that's why you have the Venn diagram up there. We know what it is, right? And can I figuratively use them and not literally use them? We have two options here, okay? Always. Now, can some of them do both? Absolutely. Okay? So that's why I like to make this Venn diagram here, which, by the way, if you signed up for this course and sent an email address, you will receive the link to this. I can see all of you like writing out all the words. I hope I have enough time. Look at B. She's like burning up the paper over there. All right. I like to show people a visual of things that normally you just hear about and you're like, oh my goodness, what am I going to do with that information? Okay. So we're going to create this visual in our minds. You can make it pink, green, yellow, whatever. I'd use colors when I'm doing it on Zoom. Okay. But for the most part, except for some situations that if it's informal, we tend to use it a different way. But for the most part, we can divide it into 3 categories, and one of them is a joint category, okay? So what you find here in the middle is that those specific phrasal verbs can be used both literally / physically, okay? And on the opposite, and also used as figurative. Okay, so you don't actually act out or do what it says. Okay, that's the category in the middle. I hate to break it to you, but there are a lot in the middle. A whole lot of those 10,000 go in the middle, and you're like, great, I can't wait. Okay, and then there are others that you can only or mostly will say, because then someone's going to be like, what about the example? And I'm going to be like, that's the one example that you can use that for. It can only be on this side. Let me see if I got this right, Javier. Yes, literal and physical. Okay, only use that way, or only use figurative. You can't act that out, okay? So if we divide up phrasal verbs into these 2 categories, or 3 categories, I guess you could say, then we'll be able to go, oh, that makes sense. You can't actually physically do this. Now, something very important, because I know you're going to ask me about this. You're writing your questions for the end of this talk, okay? This has nothing to do with what we call transitive and intransitive phrasal verbs. You can see all of your light bulbs going off right now, right? We'll talk about that in a minute. And it has nothing to do with whether or not you can separate them or not, right? We know that some phrasal verbs, we can take an object, put it in the middle, and separate the verb and the preposition. That has nothing to do with what I'm talking about here. This is just the meaning, okay? We got to go step by step, baby steps, okay? So let's take a look at what these specific phrasal verbs are, okay? And I could fill this thing up for days, okay? But let's take a look first of run out of. How is run out of used physically? Somebody give me an example. And I'll repeat it because you don't have a mic for those who are watching live. Gasoline? Did that happen to you recently, B? That you're okay. Money? Milk. I feel like you're telling me the story of your week. Okay. Food, milk, gasoline, money. We can run out of many things. A company who is selling tickets through Ticketmaster, they've run out of tickets because there are only a certain number of spaces, right? It means se acabaron o se agotaron. Do we agree? Okay. Now, can you physically use run out of? If you don't like this talk and I see you going that way and you're running out of the library. Yes or no? Yeah? So you can physically run out of, please don't do it. If you do it where the camera can't see you. It's be embarrassing for me, not for you. So run out of can be both physical and can be figurative. Do we agree? Yes, you can run out of a place or run out of something. Se acabaron. Go ahead. Oh, she's like, a question. Yeah. Hold it to the end, write it down, and I'll answer it. Okay? I know these questions are going to be out. Lauren, what about the example? And I'm going to be like, yeah, I didn't think of that because there's 10,000 and I can't think of all of them at the same time. But we agreed that they're both, right? In this case? Okay. Let's take a look at pull over. Pull over. A physical and a figurative sense. One of them seems physical, but really I would say it's more in a figurative sense. Pull over. Anybody? Okay, I got 2 at the same time. In the car, yes? I categorize that as figurative because you're not really getting out and grabbing your car and pulling it. If you want to look, is anyone a mechanic here? I look like a mechanic because I'm wearing this today, but no one's a mechanic. Okay, so if you're not thinking about the logistics of the axle is turned this way and therefore you're pulling it, I like to call it figurative. If you want to put it in the physical side, you can, okay? But what's the other one? When I said pull over physically, what was your action that you did, your gesture? She's thinking of like a sweater, right? Not something that does have buttons or zippers. You would pull it over your head, right? Jalarlo sobre la cabeza. Yes? Do you agree? So it's both physical and it's figurative. Let's take a look at take out. Now this has many meanings. Take does this all the time. But okay, take out, that would be the way that we describe, right, as like an adjective or a noun, but that's one of those informal ones that we've created over the years. No, I'm going to get takeout. Have you heard that? Okay, so in that case, we use it informally. But if we're talking about it in takeout physically, I'm going to take this out of the box. I'm going to take the water out of the bottle, right? I mean, I'd probably pour it, but I would take the present out of the box, right? Take the money. I don't have money, don't think, but out of my pocket, right? So that's a physical one. What about take out as a figurative one? Oh, to take it, but that would still be almost like physical out of something, right? Anything else? But physically, right? Like on a date, take me out. Yes. Okay, so this is a good point. If I added another word right here, the word on, now what does that mean? Remember, we had one more preposition and it has a different meaning, right? Take something out on someone else, right? It means almost infligir tus emociones o sacarlos en alguien, aunque no sea tal vez su culpa, or maybe it is their fault, right? I don't know. I don't know your life, right? But take it out on, don't take it out on me. It's not my fault, right? Okay, that's if I add on. Now, this is an example of an informal one, okay? Have you ever heard, and this is going to be a very strange one, but have you ever heard on like a very kind of gory type movie where they're like fighting and it's battle and they say, take him out? What does that mean? That's a good word. Eliminate him. Yes. Eliminate him in not a very friendly way, right? Now, it could be more informal, we could say, but it's not actually taking him and moving him out somewhere. It just means another word, like he's no longer with us, right? Take out. But if I did add another preposition on here, it's going to change meanings, okay? What about put in? Yeah, literally, if I just follow it physically, I'm just taking something and I'm taking the books and I'm putting them in the box, right? Right. Now, okay, now on a shelf, I just did this with another, if the student is watching, Karedi, if you're watching, you know what we practiced today. On because it's sobre, okay? Now remember this physical part here, that's all the ones that are over here on this side, I'll show in a minute, and that they share it here. When we're talking about the physical or the literal side of phrasal verbs, think about physically doing it yourself, okay? Why? Because you said a bookshelf. Now, everybody see those books there in the back? Rick, you don't have to turn the camera around, it'd be a lot. But imagine we're in a library with a bunch of books, okay? And they are on top of like the repisa part. It's physically on it, right? Any of these have to be physically thought out in that way, right? The pencil is on the table, sobre, okay? I can use other ones on top of, blah, blah, but that's just focusing mainly on the preposition in those cases. Act it out if you have to in your mind, okay? So that would be put on. Put in is physically dentro de. I assume, Brian, sorry to put you on the spot, all of these books have been put in to the system for something. Yes? When you go to check out a book, it's in the system. They put them in the system, okay? That's really physical because it's registered there, okay? Now, what's the figurative way of using put in? Put in some effort. Yes, okay? Are you physically putting it in literally? Not really. What about hours? Have you ever had to work on something you had to put in a lot of hours? Right? You're not taking them and being like, I am going to take these hours and colocarlos aquí, right? O colocarlas aquí, right? We're not talking physical. It's just a figurative way of saying, voy a poner esta cantidad de horas o invertir esta cantidad de horas en lo mismo, right? On the same page? Starting to see some heads like, yes, I think I know what you're talking about. Okay, so if I go to, we're going to switch over to the left side, literal, oops, sorry, no, we're not. Literal and physical. Come back. Now, remember, you can debate these if you want with me. This is what I think this is where they should go. Because you can even figuratively say, oh, he came back from that loss last time in his last game. He came back. Physically, he didn't come back. So you could put it in both. I like to keep it on because that's a really informal way that we use it now, right? Sorry, what did you say over here? To return to come back to something. Yeah, to return physically. Yes, come back. I feel like that's a song. Come back to me. Okay. So it's the same similarly if I said go back. Do you agree? Go back to the beginning. I have to physically go there and start over, or go back physically to where I came from. Get back, return to your original spot, right? Yes? I mean, I don't want glazed over eyes yet. We're only starting. Yes, B, were you going to say something? Or you're like, yes, that's okay. So in this case, physical, come back, right? Come back here. Yes, physical, pretty easy. Let's take a look at switching over to the figurative. Call off. What does call off mean if I had to use it in one specific verb in Spanish? They're like, I'm going to do it in English. Cancelar, right? Ya no está en pie el evento, whatever you're doing, right? Call off, cancel. Give me an example of something you can call off. An appointment, a date, a concert, right? A meeting. It means more than one person has agreed to come together on Zoom or whatever, or to be in a space at the same time. Called off, it's no longer going to happen. Okay, we're canceling that arranged time on our schedule. Okay, so can I call off someone? Call off physically? Kind of hard, right? Now, again, you can debate it with me all day long. I like to put it in the figurative because that's the most common way to use it. You could also, if you're fit, but it's still not almost physical. It still sounds kind of figurative. If I'm reading a list of something, let's say I read the emails that you guys sent. I'm not going to read your emails out loud, and I say, all right, I'm going to call off all the names and you tell me if you're here or not. Do you see? And I'm literally, hey, but I'm not calling. You know what I mean? So it's not really the same as following the exact verb of call to an extent, but we could debate it all day long. Yes, kind of, but it doesn't even have to be least. Yeah, usually it's like on a list to call it off, right? One by one. Uh-huh. Wait, can you repeat it while he does it? There we go. I saw in the library.
Okay. There is a shift in the books that is called.
Okay.
When you go to the books, you find a number in order to find the books. So
okay.
You call the number of the books.
Oh, okay. But see, that's one of those things that the verb itself changes just inside of the verb without making a compound / phrasal verb, right? So you could, and I've never heard that used before. So call the books, right? But there's no preposition after it, right? So it's not changing based on a compound verb in that case. But that's interesting to know because I didn't know that either. So can we call off things and cancel? Yes, you can call off a list if you want to call it that way, but it's not normally a physical thing, okay? Another figurative, get along with, two of them, along and with. What does that mean? No. Okay, I love how it's like 1, 2, 3, 4. To have, thank you, the English teacher over here, of course, did it. Yes, so to have a good relationship with someone, remember in Spanish we say llevarse bien con alguien. You know, if you say, ¿cómo se llevan? And you say, nos llevamos, is that good or bad? Nos llevamos, yeah, everyone's like, we just nos llevamos. In English, that does not mean a negative thing or a neutral thing. It's always positive. I get along with him, okay? Can I take away this verb? By the way, in British English, we say get on. We don't say get along, but we're in the U.S. Embassy's space, so of course we're using a different version. When can I take away the with? Sometimes I need them. Sometimes I don't need that extra preposition. When can I take that away? Anybody know? Well, wouldn't it be weird in Spanish if I said, yo me llevo bien con, and then I just shut up? You'd be like, and who is that, right? So I don't need the with unless I'm explaining with whom I need to or do get along, right? So if I'm just going to say, yeah, we get along, nos llevamos bien, we get along. If I'm going to say with who, then I use with. That's it. So sometimes we need it, sometimes we don't. Okay? And that's going to come back in transitive, intransitive. Literal and physical, peel off. Everyone does the banana or the mango. I don't know, right? Peel off, la cáscara, right? The peel. Can you actually do that physically? Yes. Can you figuratively peel off? I don't think so. Not that I can think of, right? A sticker on a new water bottle. Peel it off, right? What? I mean, that's a very strange way to say that. I've never heard that before. It's like, it sounds like the quote on Shrek where it's like, I'm an onion. She says, you're like an onion. You've got to peel back the layers. No, I don't think so. Peel back, we can say. Like, alejándolo de lo que está a lo que está pegado, alejándolo de ahí, like pulling off, right? So, can you see in that sense how we can make a visual out of this? Think in your mind, is this one of those ones that can be used both ways? Is it one of the ones that can only be used figuratively or also physically and literally? Okay, so that's the visual that we have first. Okay, now let's get complicated. Yes. She says it's like, oh, when you mean with peel off? Yes, like a mask on your face. Yes, if it's stuck on something, then you can peel it off. That's sorry, I'm repeating so that they can hear on the live. Yes, peeling off a face mask. Yeah. What labels for things, stickers, any of that. You know, it's really annoying when you go to peel something off and then it still has that white sticky stuff and you're like, I gotta go get the alcohol, and it's a whole thing now, right? Yes, but all in the same category. Okay, now let's get complicated. Okay, I want to show you now the difference between transitive versus intransitive phrasal verbs. Okay, this doesn't technically have to do with whether or not you can separate them or not. Okay, but it has a little bit to do with that. Okay. Now, whether you can separate them or not, I'll be honest with you, it's really a matter of memorization for the most part. Okay. But this does say a lot of the two types. Now, this has nothing to do with physical, literal, figurative. That's a whole nother segment we just finished. Okay. Transitive and intransitive verbs. Okay. Who would like to read this little point right here so you don't all dream of my voice going on and on in your head tonight? Go ahead, Itzel.
Transitive
Oops, sorry.
versus intransitive phrasal verbs. Transitive phrasal verbs are followed by an object, while intransitive ones are not.
Yes, intransitive phrasal verbs are not. Okay, so that's not the same necessarily as separable and inseparable, which those are more of a memorization type thing. Okay, but let's take a look at what that means. Okay, so it's not like one is good and one is bad. That's not why it's green and red. Okay, but there is something to say of how sometimes we can separate these or not. Okay, I want you to take note of the transitive ones where it says it needs an object. Now, this doesn't mean a sustantivo, just a noun. It means algo tiene que recibir ese verbo o esa acción. Okay, so it can't just caer en el aire. It can't just like fall out in the air like, woo, I'm just going to leave it like that. It has to land somewhere. Okay, so before we go on to reading the examples for this, let's take a look at intransitive verbs. They're not bad. They're just red. Should have chosen blue or something. Okay, they cannot. It's not like a ver si pones o no pones. They cannot have an object. So they can't depend on something else. Now, this is important. You can add any other details you want in a sentence, okay, that are not dependent on your phrasal verb. And you're going to see in a moment. I can give you so much detail in a really long sentence, and the part that's dependent on the phrasal verb is just a tiny part where the verb is, okay? So you're going to see extra information, but the extra information is not leaning on the phrasal verb. Okay, it's not dependent on the phrasal verb. It's just extra information. This side, however, is depending on the phrasal verb. It's the object that's receiving that action. Okay, so let's take a look at this part up here first. Who would like to read this example right here? Go you. Read loud, Tere, because you know what? I might have to pass back and forth I love how I'm like, this is not going to be interactive. They don't need a mic, and Javier's like running. Just this one. Just this one right here.
I'm looking for my keys.
I'm looking for my keys. What is the direct object that is dependent on this verb? Keys, my keys, right? Any phrasal verb that after you say it has to land with an object afterward that receives that action is going to be what we call transitive. In other words, it's in camino, right? Transition almost, okay? And it has to land somewhere, okay? You look for something, anything, Okay. Is anyone looking for a spot to watch the solar eclipse next week? You're not going to watch the solar eclipse? No one? Are you looking for a spot, a place to watch the solar eclipse? They're like outside of my house. That's going to be me. Anybody going to Mazatlan? Good idea. I hear it's full of people right now. Not a good idea to go. So basically, you're looking for a place to be. I cannot say, hey, are you looking for? I can, but you're going to be like, ajá, y luego? Like, what's next, right? Tell me something else you're looking for right now. You're all satisfied in life. No one's looking for anything. Oh, yes. You're looking for phrasal verb tricks and tips. Good. Give me objects. Remember, it has to be an object, right? Nobody, everybody's happiness. Thank you, B. Yes. You're looking for happiness. It's a thing, okay? Anything that is a noun, in this case, an object. What are you looking for? Why can I land it like this with a question? Why can I just like that if it's a question? Anybody? No? We're looking for someone to answer and give us that answer, right? What are you looking for, right? When I said, hey, where's my water bottle? And if someone just walked into the room, they're going to be like, what are they all looking for, right? Her water bottle, right? So there's an answer. And even though my object that it's dependent on is outside of the sentence, it's an answer. That's the purpose behind it, right? You cannot just say, I'm looking for, and stop. People are going to look at you weird, okay? You need a direct object when using a transitive phrasal verb, like we just said. Now, before we go down to this, let's take a look at intransitive. These need to stand alone, and this information, like, well, they have extra information. It's just giving us more details. That doesn't mean it's dependent on the phrasal verb. If it's not there, it should be able to make sense as a full, complete idea, full sentence, okay? So who can read this one right here? Hubby, can you pass the microphone to someone in the back so you don't have to walk far away? Marín de doping, ini, mini, mani. There we go. Can you read this one?
Okay, my car broke down this morning.
Yes. If I take out this morning, does it make sense? My car broke down. Yes? This morning is just extra information. Time, okay? If I look at this one, you cannot, well, this is the explanation. You cannot have an object after an intransitive phrasal verb. In this case, the phrasal verb is just break down. So you cannot say break down something. Right? I can't invent and go, I'm going to put an object in there because it sounds good. It does not sound good. I'll tell you right now, okay? You have to forget the object, the direct object. You need it here. You cannot have it here, okay? You can give any amount of information after it, no problem, but you cannot have it depending on whatever the verb is or vice versa, okay? So in this case, I grew up. Can I just say that? I grew up. Yes. B, you made that comment. You're very tall today. I grew up, guys. Okay? No more growing for me. I grew up in New Zealand. Isn't that extra information? Right? It's just extra. It's just extra detail. But I could say, I grew up in New Zealand in the middle of the jungle. I don't know, close to a tribe of people. I can give you the amount of details that I want, right? But, oh my, very touchy. Okay. But it's not dependent. It's just extra information. Does that make sense? Yes? Am I losing anyone? Yes, B. She said, what? Break it down. Okay, we're good. See, of course, B's going to come up with all these exceptions. No, I'm just kidding. We're going to come back to that in a minute with when, on occasion, we can use them. Now, what's the difference? That's an informal type phrase most of the time, okay? Now, when you say breakdown, there's a difference of this breakdown than the one that you're using, okay? And what is that? If I break down a concept into tiny pieces, that's not the same as this breakdown. Would you agree? If I had to put this into Spanish, this phrase, my car broke down, what is that in Spanish? Se descompuso, dejó de funcionar, ya no camina. También significa mucho dinero. Do we agree? Most of the time, okay? So that is a different meaning to break down that you mentioned than what's up here. Right? And it could be formal or an informal. If I said it in a formal sense, like concept of a presentation, I'm going to break it down. It's a verb, it's a preposition. We use it this way, but I am taking a concept and making it simpler by putting into smaller pieces, right? That's different than se descompuso. right? How would I say break down a complicated concept into smaller pieces to understand? How could I say that in Spanish? No, pero no descomponemos. Descomponemos, am I learning? Desglosar, yes, desglosar, right? Why? Because that's a different meaning. Yes, we could also say that, which is almost like to shred, but that we'd be here forever if we did all of them, right? But do you get the idea? They're two different verbs, two different meanings. Here it's using it in the intransitive way, right? And we're going to come back to when you can use a pronoun in between when they're separable or not, or inseparable, and also whether they can be standing or hanging at the end, we'll say, okay? Let's go to these other examples here. Some verbs can be transitive in one sentence and intransitive in another because English likes to be complicated, right? We know that. So, for example, transitive, took off his tie. Do you notice something over here, okay, that we talked about in these types of things, this graph over here? It's the physical version of it, okay? We're going to use two physical/literal versions of it, and they're going to mean two different things in two different circumstances, okay? Took off his tie when he got home. It's literally quitarse las cosas, okay? Notice in Spanish, when you use them in two different ways, it's two totally different verbs in Spanish, like descomponer y desglosar, right? Take off is quitarse algo, right? No longer on your body, okay? And in this case, this is our verb our object that it's depending on, okay? And intransitive verb, the plane will take off in 10 minutes. I could just say the plane will take off, right? At some point. I'm giving extra information of in 10 minutes. What is take off in Spanish? Despegar. No one said quitarse, right? El avión se va a quitar. No, a ver, yo quiero que venga completito, para volar, right? You don't want to take anything off the plane. So when there's two different meanings, they're usually two different verbs in Spanish also, right? But in this case, there is something it's dependent on. I cannot say, oh, when I got home, I took off. What? I could use it in a way that's informal to say, my dad says this all the way, I took off, me fui, right? Huí, me fui, salí corriendo, any of those. He took off, he started running, he's left quickly, right? But in this case, it doesn't mean the same thing. And it's not dependent on anything else of a plane. We take off in 10 minutes. Please sit down and buckle your seatbelts, right? And sometimes the meaning of phrasal verb of a phrasal verb, changes depending on whether the phrasal verb is transitive or intransitive, similar to this over here, okay? In this case, to remove something, in this case, to take off in a plane, okay? I know you're all shaking your heads. Does that mean, yes, you really do understand? Or you're like, oh, this is a lot of information. Okay, now, let's be honest. You're not going to be sitting and going, is that transitive or intransitive? Okay, I don't know. In a conversation, you start to get the hang of it. How? How do we get the hang of things? Yes, practice, practice, practice. Yes, okay. Of course, you have to practice them. You'll start to recognize and go, oh, that sounds weird that way, right? When you see somebody say, I got home and I finally was able to take off and stop talking, you're going to be like, le falta algo, no? Like, he's missing a word there or something, okay? I'm not going to say questions about this, but if you do have questions, write them down, and we'll come back to asking some at the end, okay? Now, this part I'm actually going to skip towards or to at the end with a little announcement that I'm going to make. So we're not going to completely focus on this at the moment, okay? But we are going to talk about whether or not you can discover or kind of navigate through whether it's a separable or inseparable phrasal verbs, okay? What do you think is more difficult for you to determine, transitive or intransitive, or separable or not, or inseparable? Thank you. Honesty is the best policy. She's like, all of it is very hard. Yes. Okay. So we are going to come back to this. I'm not just going to leave it hanging there. Let's take a look at how much we change the meaning of one specific verb in English by adding a preposition, a different preposition every time. Okay. I just heard someone sigh like, okay, let's do this. Okay. Now, I'll be honest with you. The more commonly used a verb in English, the more we're going to use it also as a phrasal verb. Good luck. Okay. So a very common, how many of you love this verb over here? Woo, get. We use it for everything. Like if I asked you, what does get mean? I'm not joking. It has like 8 or more meanings. And for me to sit here with I'd have to think but it could also mean conseguir, obtener, o lograr. Oh, we'd be here forever, right? But we all agree get is very common. We use it for a lot of things. In fact, sometimes I say, when in doubt, úsalo con get. Seguro se te va a salir algo por ahí, right? That's not a real rule. Do not repeat that. Okay. So as you can see, every time we add one of these prepositions, okay, we can see that it changes the meaning completely. Some of them are logical or literal or physical. I say logical. None of these are logical, guys. Physical or literal, okay? But some of them you just have to learn the way they are because they're figurative. Now, we're going to do a little exercise here, okay? Everybody see these right here? Get off, get on. This is what I like to do. And Rick, if you could help me to just move the camera towards the what's this called? Whiteboard over here, because I'm going to do a little exercise that I find, Tere, you can use this with little kids, big kids, which means adults, okay? Everyone, because I like to make concepts visual, okay? Now, I use this together with a little video. I'm not going to show you the video for the sake of time, but I will recommend it to you, okay? And I'll tell you which one I use for those of you who are teachers. Anyone that already know and Itzel who are teachers? Anyone else in here a language teacher? English or anything else? Oh, Betty, of course. I was thinking of you as a translator, but yes. It's okay. You still came to the right place. Good. Okay. So I like to give visuals for people to understand concepts a little bit better, and this is for everyone, okay? Have you ever tried to understand or worry about, what did I do with oh, right here. Thank you. I put it in my pocket, okay? So I want you to, if this was kindergarten, I'd be doing it as a little charades game. Sorry, Rick, if I moved, okay? All right, guys, guess what this is? Oh, good. You're very specific, okay? Oh, wait, who said it? Duck. Duck, duck, goose. Very good. All right. So, you guys are very profound. The ocean, the waves upon the shore. Okay. Yeah, just a duck. Okay. So, we'll put a little bad Monday hair day. Oh, there. Okay. So, I say, guys, what is this? You guess while I'm drawing it. What is it? Everybody said it's a what? A duck. Okay. Now, I say, did you know that this word, duck, can also be a verb? Yes? Okay, you've heard it as a verb before, right? What? It sounds like a hit. Okay, we tell people to duck when they're hitting, right? You're on the right track. Okay, so yeah, it's a verb. It's not. It doesn't mean quaquear, quack, quack, quack. That's not to duck. Okay, not the same. But it is a verb. And you said you know what it is. What is to duck?
Duck down is when it's to bow to somebody.
Yes, agacharse. Do you agree? No arrodillarse, agacharse. Okay? Whether it's this much, because you're really tall and you hit your head on something, or it's this much, that's ducking. Agacharse. Por mucho, por poquito. Por poquito. Okay, good. We're on the right track. So that's what it means. Now you're like, what does this have to do with phrasal verbs? Okay? This is not included in a phrasal verb, but I say that this is a very important concept to understand, to duck, the difference between the following. There are two up here. I'm going to add two more that can be confusing. We're going to use get, on, and off are on here. But we also have get in, get out. Okay, now we can use these in many, many different ways. Get out of here. Okay, please stay. I'm not talking to you. Okay. Get on, get off, get on the car, on top of it. That would be weird, but I don't know. Somebody probably does it, okay? In these cases, we're going to talk about how we use them with transportation. And you're like, still, what does that have to do with a duck? Okay? So a little video that I used. Did anybody watch the movie from the 90s? I'm going to know your age for this. That was called La Princesa I think it's del Cisne or Cisnero or something like that. The Swan Princess. It was not a Disney movie. It's like not even DreamWorks. I don't know. If my sisters are watching this, Google it, figure out where that's from. But there is a movie called The Swan Princess that I, as a child, watched. And there was a specific part where they're playing kind of like a fun game of having to hit the different animals and get points. Now, they're humans dressed up in animals. They're not killing anyone in a children's movie, okay? But it's a game where they have to get points for this. And one of the guys is dressed up as a duck. And every time they say, duck, they're saying, agáchense. So all of the animals duck. And what happens to the duck? He goes, ¿Qué pasó? The duck goes, what? And they get a point, right? And then it's the next scene. And they say, duck, all the animals go down and he goes, "K." And so, of course, the duck is hit with all of these different like pieces of paint or things of paint on him. So they get the points for it, right? But I like to connect those to a lot of things for us to have like a visual in the same way and remember. So to duck means agacharse. We're going to apply that to this and to this. Okay? Now, if you have a hard time remembering, what do I use when I'm talking about getting on some form of transportation? Ojo. Point here, right here. Okay? Everybody look this way. This is not the literal sense like subirse a algo, montar caballo. I would get on top of a horse, yes? I would get on, what else? A motorcycle, bicycle, right? That's physically getting on and I get off of it, okay? We're not talking about literal. We're talking about different types of transportation besides physically getting on them like that, okay? So get on and get off is normally public types of transportation, okay? You go, what does that have to do with to duck? Okay? If you do not have to duck your head to get on that type of transportation, for the most part, unless everyone's riding around in a private jet. Anyone? Brian, do you have a private jet yet? Well, he's not inviting us. He doesn't want everybody to know because then you're all going to want to go at the same time, right? Get on and get off. If you do not duck your head, it's going to be get on and get off. So the last time you flew on an airplane, did you duck your head? No. Entramos caminando, no? Unless you're extremely tall, then this does not apply to you, okay? Right? Okay. Last time you got on the metro, the subway, did you duck your head? You might have done this in Mexico. That's a different thing in the metro in Mexico, but there's a different level to it, right? But you didn't have to duck, okay? What about the Metrobús? If you've ever gone in Adeo, the bus service here, do you duck? You get on walking. You get on a bus, you get off a bus. You get on the subway, you get off the subway. You get on a plane, you get off a plane. Usually public forms of transportation because you don't duck your head. No andan cuaqueando, that's not the same thing, okay? And this one is more private forms of transportation, and you have to duck your head to get in, okay? So if I'm passing for you by your house, I say, hey, hurry up, get in. Now, I know this question's going to come. So if you have a convertible, you're not going to duck your head, but it's a private form of transportation, okay? Because I know you've seen the movie Grease, and they're like, get in, and there's no roof on the car, but generally you duck your head, okay? In a private car, maybe in a private jet, but it'd be weird. It's kind of a debatable one. Any form that you have to duck your head, you get in it and you get out of it. Get in the car. Oh my God, you sing terribly. Get out of the car. Okay? I hope they don't tell you that, but, right? Private form. So if you duck your head and you have to duck it, get in, get out. If you don't, get on, get off, which means normally public transportation. Yes? So if you go over here and look at get off and get on, to leave a boat, bicycle, bus, plane, or train, or subway, or whatever, okay? For the most part. Bicycle or motorcycle here is because it's physically, or a horse, okay? To get off, to get on, to board a boat, a bicycle, a bus, a plane, or train. All of those are kind of public transportation. Would we agree? Even a bicycle is public transportation here, so. All right? So let's go through this list just really quickly. I'm not going to go through every single detail of it, but for you to get an idea of how much this can change word by word, okay? Get ahead. It means to progress. Was that a question? To get ahead is to progress, okay, in something figuratively. Physically, it's adelantarte, pero ponerte más adelante de lo que estabas. I was running in the race, and I got ahead of him. He's behind me now, right? How many of you have ever left the office for a week, and you come back, and you're like, oh, my goodness, there's so much work. You are no longer ahead of it. You would have to say, I'm getting behind. Me estoy atrasando, okay? Or physically, get behind me. Ahead in front, behind, detrás, right? And it's also figuratively, right? Oh my goodness, I have so much work and I'm getting behind every day, right? Te estás atrasando, okay? What about getting ahead in progress? I want to get ahead in all of my work so when I go on vacation, it's not a nightmare when I come back, okay? Get away, escape for good or for bad, right? From prison. I hope that's not your situation, but from prison, okay? From the police, or in this case, like una escapadita. We've said that before, right? Like, I'm going to get away for a great holiday this year, right? Holiday, vacation, depending on where you're from. The British say holiday, okay? Get back, okay? Get back for the most part is to say regresar al punto originario, right? So, how many of you went somewhere for Semana Santa? Nobody? They're like, when's Semana Santa? All right, that's already passed. Okay. I did. Now I feel bad because no one else did. I went somewhere for Semana Santa. I got back on Saturday. Why do I say got back and not say arrived? Because regresé al punto de donde salí y esta es mi casa. Literally, this library is almost my second home. The embassy is almost my second home. Okay. Get by. This is a tricky one. I'm sure you know what get into trouble is. If you're a kid, you know what get into trouble is. Okay. Get by is one of those ones that's completely figurative. It means poder salirte con los recursos adecuados o el dinero adecuado apenitas. Ni te sobra, ni te falta. Okay. So if I say, hey, if I gave you 1 million pesos every week, do you think you could get by? Ahí sales, no? If not, what are you buying? And how big is your house? Okay. By all means, absolutely, I could. Exactly, right? If I said, I'm going to give you 15 pesos a week, that's enough, right? You can get by. You're like, if I sleep and I don't do anything and I, right? Of course not. You cannot get by. No te alcanzan los recursos, sea dinero o cosas físicas, right? In that sense. Okay. Actually, it could be things that are not even physical. Sleep. I do not do well if I haven't slept a lot. I cannot get by on little amounts of sleep, right? I need to sleep more, okay? Get into trouble, meterse en problemas, no? In general. Get over. It could be physically recover from sickness, or it could be superar algo, right? A relationship. Get over it. Supéralo, ya. Or him or her, whatever. Get over them, right? Get together. Notice this one right here with, just like get along with, because I don't need it unless I say what I'm talking about. So get along with my friends or get together with my friends. Meet, not conocer por primera vez, sino reunirse. Okay. And lastly, get up. How many of you wake up, but you don't get up immediately? All of us, don't lie. Yes. Okay. All right. So do you see this one beautiful verb that we always use of get constantly being used differently when we add a new preposition? It's already complicated by itself with its 8+ meanings, but then we add prepositions and it's more complicated. Take, same thing. Look at all of the different options here with prepositions. Okay? Every time we change the preposition, we change the meaning, unfortunately. And then let's make it more complicated. We also have several versions of the same exact phrasal verb. Yeah. Oh my God, I can't believe. Okay. So take after. Anybody know what take after means? What does it mean? Take after. I do. Do you know my mother? Oh, if you come to my book launch next week, you're going to meet her. And yes, I do take after her. I look very much like her. It could be en forma de ser o físicamente. Te pareces a alguien biológicamente que sea pariente tuyo. Okay? So, for example, I do look like my mother, so I take after my mother. Okay? It has nothing to do with anything else. You can't use it for anything else. You'll be like, well, after means después, así que lo puedo usar con nope. You can't use it for other things. Okay? Take away, to remove something, quitarlo, right? I can also say, ¿qué sacaste de la plática? What did you take away from the talk, right? Remember, every time I had a preposition means something different. Take back, regresar algo, incluso tus palabras. I take that back. I didn't mean to say that, right? Take care of, cuidar de. Now, if you look at these, start thinking, is it transitive or intransitive? Can I just say, hey, this weekend they asked me to take care of of something, someone, dogs, cats, something. Take care. I could also say hacerme responsable de algo. Don't worry, I'll take care of it. Yo me encargo, right? But I need a thing, a meaning, a something. So it's going to be transitive, right? Okay. Take down to record writing, but also physically take something down. Sometimes if they have other activities, they have to take down the stage, right? Quitarlo, desarmarlo. Okay. And beautiful take off. We're going to use 4 different meanings here. First, to rise from the ground, despegar, right? Airplanes or rockets. Take off number 2, to remove clothing you are wearing. Take off your clothes, take off your shoes, take off your watch. Take off, to arrange to be absent from school or work. That's our favorite one, right? Except for the children here. You're all going to school, right? Oh, there's no kids left. Okay. Take off of work es pedir libre. Take off. I took off of work last week. Oh, I need to take off Monday and Tuesday. You're right. Tengo que pedirlo para que pueda ser libre para mí, para no tener que ir. And lastly, to be successful very quickly. His career took off so fast, right? He had a lot of success, right? Which, if you think about it, this takeoff of a career is the figurative form of a rocket taking off really fast, or a plane, right, with speed. Take over, tomar control de. I will take over. Different than saying I will take care of. Take care is yo me encargo y me aseguro de que se cumpla lo que es la tarea, okay? Take over is yo tomaré control, right? Could be a king, he's taking over the land, okay? Or I'll take over. Don't worry about it. Yo me encargo en el sentido que voy a estar en control de todo, okay? And take up, this is a strange one. It means empezar a hacer alguna actividad, generalmente por primera vez, pero como hobby, something new. If you're just learning English, I'm sorry because I'm speaking very quickly, but taking up learning English, for example, right? You're starting it as a new hobby or activity, right? Take up painting. How many of you took up a new hobby in the pandemic? Yes? Only Tere? What were you guys doing? Watching Netflix? Several activities. You weren't the people who were like, I'm going to have a panaderia at the end of the pandemic. I'm going to make all types of bread. No? Something, okay. They're like, no, we didn't do that. Just you did that. So it's something that in this case you take up for the first time, something new, painting, a hobby, learning a language, something like that. Okay. So do you see how complicated it can be? Separable phrasal verbs here. All of the ones who have the asterisk, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 can be separated. Okay. Take the movie back to Blockbuster if it was 1995, right? That's the only thing I could think of. Be kind, rewind. Ooh. If I say take down, I'm going to take the flag down. No, I'm not. Don't worry, Brian. I'm not touching anything I'm not supposed to. I took my clothes off. I took my boots off. Okay. I took 5 days off of work. Cuánto, cantidad, right? Sorry, take over. This is not a very common separable one. Honestly, I would normally say I took over the project, okay? Or she took the project over. Possible, not as common. Take up. I took up some type of hobby. More commonly in American English, we don't separate this one, okay? But aren't you having fun, guys? Please don't fall asleep. Yes, they're like, yay. So let me freak you out a little bit. These are just a few of some B2 phrasal verbs. People often ask me, well, when do I start learning phrasal verbs? Okay. Now, I always use the CEFR for the level of our languages, right? Learning any other language. In English, we have A0, which is hi, bye, all the way to C2, idioms, fluent speaking. Okay, everyone's familiar with that because your teacher probably told you at some point, right? Most of the time, complex phrasal verbs are used in B2, most of the time, okay? However, I don't think it's a good idea to start them in B2. You're going to be lost, okay? Why? Because they're important from the beginning, at least A2 and up, okay? Now, I would say focus on the take, have, get ones, the ones that we use the most, in A2 around there for those who are teachers or learning, okay? And then keep adding more and more the higher you go, okay? However, you have to pretty much master them for C1, B2, and C1. By the time you're at C2, you should have them not all memorized, but pretty well used, right? So if I went through every single one of these, we would be here until Christmas, okay? And I know you're enjoying it, but the people online do not want to stay here connected until Christmas, okay? So just get a little idea of how much we use these, right? Some of them can mean more than one thing, physical or not. Oops, sorry, that's a repeat of this one. Brush up on changes the meaning, right? Don't get intimidated. You know there's a lot. I already told you 10,000. It's just a few, okay? And you're going to have these in as a link to your email, so you'll be able to go back and do your homework later if you want. Okay, so let's take a look at, I like to put this scary it on there, not because I like horror movies. I definitely have never seen the movie and do not want to. However, just so you remember, pronoun problems, okay? When we talk about whether or not we can use pronouns, whether it's separable, inseparable, however we look at it, not necessarily transitive or intransitive in general, for the most part, okay? We, for the most part, cannot place pronouns hanging at the end of phrasal verbs at the end of sentences unless they are exceptions or common phrases like things like deal with it, okay? Deal with it. Another one over here, just go for it, run with it, right? Then we can use them at the end. Let me give you an example here of something where you'll notice, oh, that's right, it sounds weird if I use a pronoun in it, okay? So, what's the best phrasal verb to say explotar algo? En pedazos, no empleados. Which, P.S., it's not explode employees. That's physical. It's exploit, but that's not the point here. Yes. Someone said blow up? Yes? Okay. Itzel, I feel like you learned that in in one of my courses. I've done this before, right? Okay. Blow up. What can I blow up? I can't blow up a candle. I can blow out a candle en el sentido de soplar a que se apague, right? It's complicated. I know. What can I blow up? Yes, Itzel is doing this. Did you say a decision? Oh, the session. Oh, yeah. That's very like informal, but yeah, like, ooh, she blew it up. It's not going well. Yes, okay. Balloon, inflar. That's what you were doing, right? To inflate something. A tire that's getting low, balloon with air or something inside, usually air. Okay, so blow up is that's one of the ways. I can also use it as emotions. I don't know what happened to her, but she suddenly just blew up on me. She just went crazy, right? Very angry or whatever. But it's also explotar en pedazos. Okay, so we're going to go with the explotar en pedazos one, to explode. Okay, and I mean, I could use it in the same way with the other things, but I'm going to use the pronoun it. Let's talk about a building. He blew up the building. Sounds like a crime and not like his job. Okay? He blew up the building. It's a separable phrasal verb. I can take the building and put it here. Ooh, he blew the building up. Didn't go well. Okay? Dynamite. Okay? I can change this specific object, like we say in transitive. I can also call it an it, right? And I can use it right here in the middle where I said, but I cannot use it hanging at the end. I cannot say he blew up it. Okay? You cannot leave a pronoun hanging at the end unless it's one of those common exceptions over here. Okay? Okay. They yes, that's true. We can use it occasionally. Yeah, you're right. There are some exceptions. This is what get along with him. I would say, let me go back, and if I did it backwards in my mind. Yeah. Personas, pero no cosas en este caso. Yeah, you're right. That's another exception for it. Yeah. I'm going to give you another rule on this also. That's actually in my book that you'll see of when we can use it specifically too. So you can get some other examples for that. So yes, keep that because I'm going to come back to it in a second. Yes, this is for the most part. There is a little rule that's going to help us to determine which of them are here, not just informal, that we're going to go to in just a minute. Okay? I feel like I can't go to the next one while people are taking pictures, right? Okay. So before we go to this little video, Javi, can you do me a favor, or Brian, whoever can pull up the PDF for me? I'm going to make this slash an announcement at the same time. While he's bringing it up, I just recently published a book. And the reason I decided to publish this book is because I reteach all of these things all the time in the workshops. And people go, where can I find that? And I say, in my head right now, you can record me. And so I finally said, I'm going to put it all together in a book that you can do on your own. Okay. So kind of like a self-taught, you don't need a teacher to do it. And it takes you through a lot of these concepts, not just phrasal verbs. Okay. But one of those on here, which is I like to call faulty phrasal verbs. It's all common mistakes we make como hispanohablantes, from Spanish to English. Okay. And it is in English, obviously, in general, but faulty phrasal verbs. Is there a way I can pull this down just a little bit? There we go. Okay. I'm not going to read the intro here, all of this, but these are some pages from my book so you can get an idea. I'm presenting this book as the book launch officially here in the library next Tuesday at 5 p.m. What's today? Thursday? Yeah, next Tuesday at 5 p.m. So it's open to the public. You're welcome to come back, and then you can see all the rest of the book if you'd like. But just this little part about phrasal verbs, okay? In English, phrasal verbs are formed by combining a verb with one or more particles, okay? Prepositions or adverbs, right? Normally prepositions, don't freak out on me, okay? To create a new meaning. These particles can be separable or inseparable depending on the specific phrasal verb. So how do we determine the two? This is the main, most of the time, rules that we can follow, okay? Separable phrasal verbs are those where the object can be placed between the verb and the particle or after the particle. Duh, right? Turn off the lights or turn the lights off, okay? Turn off is the separable phrasal verb and the lights is the object, okay? Also known here in this case as transitive. Do you see how there's a pattern here? The transitive doesn't mean it can be separated or not, but oftentimes if there's that dependent object, it's going to most likely be in this category. A lot of times, okay? Inseparable, in other words, no se pueden separar. It's a big romantic situation, okay? Are those where the object must follow the entire phrasal verb. She is looking after her sick grandmother. Now, this is still transitive because it's a person, right? It's not a set rule. But looking after is the inseparable phrasal verb, and her sick grandmother is the object. It's still transitive, but this one can't be separated. So a lot of this has to do with memorization. Okay? You're like, great. I thought you were going to help me not have to memorize these 10,000. Okay? So understanding when to use them is you have to go based on the usage, the meaning, and transitivity here at the bottom. I'm not going to read through all of this. You can come and get my book and then read it later for the sake of time, okay? Is that me doing that, Brian, or is that you? Going to the next part? Okay, I'm assuming it's me. Is it me moving it? Okay, I just didn't know if it was you or me. Okay, so this is the important note that I'm going to leave you for this, okay? Which is going to answer the question you asked just a while ago. However, it's important to note that there are exceptions and variations. Congratulations. Welcome to English, right? Within these guidelines. So it's best to consult a dictionary or reference grammar, ask me, specific phrasal verbs to understand their usage and whether they're separate and inseparable. Remember that very few times can we leave a pronoun hanging at the end of a sentence after a phrasal verb. For example, I can say, the criminal blew up the building or the criminal blew it up, but I cannot say the criminal blew up it, okay? And that is the main idea behind what we were talking about with it. There are occasions when it can happen at the end, okay? Because welcome to English, there are exceptions. But for the most part, you go dependent on transitivity and transitivity, separable and inseparable. Nothing to do with literal or physical, whole different category there. Okay, so yes, these are some exercises. If you want later, you can go through them. They're in my book along with some other topics along the way. And if you can go back to the presentation, I'm going to go to the last video on it. Now, how many of you watch television shows in English? You should all be raising your hand, right? Okay, I'm not saying don't watch the ones in Spanish, but if you watch television shows in English, in which language do you watch the subtitles or read the subtitles? In English. Oh, that is like next level. Okay, good. Even better, okay? But putting the subtitles in English is great. Why? It's connecting your brain to recognizing what's happening on the screen, expressions of people, tone of voice, intonation, okay? Pronunciation, exactly, okay? Also, vocabulary. You learn a lot of good vocabulary words, and they're written, so you don't have to worry about later learning the spelling once you see it enough. Okay. It is really, really helpful to use that as a learning tool. Okay. Watching things in English that are originally in English. Don't watch Friends in Spanish or Casa de Papel in English. They're awful. Okay. Please don't do it. They're terrible. Okay. In the same way, if you're watching it in English, put your subtitles in English. It will elevate on a huge level. Okay. Acme. Your ability for understanding, listening, increasing vocabulary, pronunciation, all of those things. Okay. Now, something that's also very important. The next time you go to one of those shows and you switch over to subtitles in English, okay, I want you to pay attention, even if you can stop for 5 minutes of speaking. Okay. If it's a British show, if it's an American show, if it's an Australian show, La Turista es muy buena. I saw it in Netflix. Okay. But in anything that you're watching and reading subtitles, I want you to make a mental pause, go through a section and count how many phrasal verbs there are. Okay. Which means it's the compound verb of a preposition connected to a verb. Always. Okay. Turn on, turn off, turn over. I hate to break it to you, but you would fill up a whole page of notes in little tiny small handwriting, right? To be able to see how many there are. And idiom, yeah. Oh, idioms is another course I'm going to give later. So that would take a whole nother 2 hours, right? At least. But we use them all the time. They are much more common than just the regular verbs. Okay. So I want to give you an example of how much they're used in a very short period of time. I believe this video is approximately 3 minutes long. Okay. And all of these here, plus I believe 2 more that I missed along the way when I was listening back on it, are found in these 3 minutes. Okay. We have add up to. What is add up to? I know it sounds like it, right? Add, juntar, accumulate. Yes. Todo se da a la suma de algo. Okay. If you say you always come on time, you give great feedback at the meetings, you're a really hard worker, that all adds up to a promotion, right? Okay. They're like, yeah, ojalá. No. Check out. What does check out mean? More than one meaning. Formally, who said correct? Correct? No, not necessarily correct. We would use it more formally. Go ahead. Yes, a hotel. It's like ya no estar dentro del registro oficial de estancia, right? Check out. Check in, right, would be the opposite. A hotel, even a flight, right? Okay, to check in. Okay, so in this case, check out is going to be echa ojo, right? Check it out. Where do you think we get chécalo from? Right? Checar, a ver si está bien, pero si dices chécalo, it means échale ojo, right? That's where it comes from. Check out. Hand over. Deliver with from one hand to the next. Hand over the keys, dámelos, right? Hand over the money in my hand, okay? Get out. Salirte, and they're going to talk about a private vehicle here. Get in. El opuesto, right? Subirte. Well, we don't say get up. That's waking up, right, in English. Horse around. Anybody know what that means? Oh, similar. Yes, as you're on the right track. Yes. To horse around, you're like, no tiene nada que ver. Cabalgar. No. Cabalgar. No, that's not the same. Horse around means to not take something seriously, right? To play around. Now, they're not going to just use horse around. They're going to use a play on words that says she's driving a Porsche, Rachel, in this episode. And she says, I'm not horsing around. I'm Porsching around, right? Play on words, but it's reference to horsing around. Pull over. We talked about, right? Not your sweater. That's a different episode with Phoebe, but yes, that not just this one. Also what? When you're driving, orillarse, right? Move off to the side. He says, pull over right now. Go down in the informal way. To go down is físicamente bajar, right? But also you're going down. What does that mean? Yes, it's like saying, no te va a ir muy bien, right? You're going down, okay? So, and I believe there's one more in here that I forgot. I can't remember when I see the video. But in a short period of approximately 3 minutes and some, watch how these are used. New volume. Watch, don't listen. Watch how these are used. Nope. Imagine what they're saying. I unfortunately know friends so well that I could probably tell you exactly what they're saying. I could quote it. No, it doesn't work? Okay, it sounds nice when you hear it. Okay, so when you go back to this link, I'll share it in the comments for those of you watching live. When you go back to this link, it's not very long, but they use this series of words one after another. To give you the general idea, Ross walks in and she says, "Oh, nice hair. Ooh, nice. That's me. Nice hairdo," in more in whatever words she says it in, right? And he says, "Yeah, I was catching the breeze," right? And she says, "I think that girl there is checking out your beehive on your head," right? They make another joke saying something adds up to, right? She says, he says, "You're irresponsible and you drive too fast. That all adds up to a bad driver," right? Todo esto se suma a. No. I was like, Wait, creo que está para abajo el volumen, ¿no? A ver, tampoco. Okay, we'll just continue guessing. The point is, it comes to the point where she takes the keys from him. He comes out and says, "Hand over the keys," right? She says, "Just get in the car," right? "Just get in the car. Nothing's gonna happen to you." She ends up getting pulled over by the police, right? And he says, "You are going down. This is not gonna go well." It's much funnier when you actually watch it yourself. But I'll let you click on the link when and the video when you get this link, okay? But my point is, in very short periods of time, almost on any show that you will see in English, it's full of phrasal verbs. The more modern the show, the more phrasal verbs there are. It's the reality. We have more than 10,000 because we're going to keep adding them. Woo! Yay! Go! Did I turn myself up? There we go. So as you can see, in a very short period of time, that's how many we have. And I also forgot one important point here that is the phrasal verb that I forgot to mention. She says, if you're that freaked out about this, right? To freak out is a phrasal verb, an informal one, but it means alocarse, right? Kind of a thing, to go crazy over something. We can also turn phrasal verbs into forms of adjectives sometimes, right? We take this, just obviously if it's appropriate and can be used. For example, she said, if you are, that's the verb, freaked out. She turned it into an adjective, freaked out about something. I can't use it for absolutely every phrasal verb. It has to obviously apply and be appropriate for whatever the circumstances, but especially for describing estados de ánimo, right? How you are, your attitude, whatever. Okay. So in that case, you can use it, but to freak out was the other one that's on there. But as you can see, in a very short period of time, you can see a large number of phrasal verbs, just that list, right? That's 3 minutes. Also, I must say, the Benjamin Franklin Library does not own the rights to this video. It is on YouTube. It is from obviously the best show in the world, Friends. So just letting you know, and especially because we're going live here. But try to do that next time. Stop for just in an episode, take 5 minutes where they're talking, not silence. See how many phrasal verbs you can pull out of what they're saying, right? They're used so often. You're like, we know, that's why we came to this talk, right? Okay, I'm going to start gearing up for, let me just make sure I didn't put anything at the end of this. Nope, there we go. It is the end. I'm going to gear up for, or have you gear up for any questions. So Brian, you mentioned for people to line up here, or do you want to pass the mic around? Is it better for people to come up here? If you have any leftover questions from what I talked about today. Yes, Paul. Oh, over here. I think you have to come up too. They're going to be like, now I'm not going to ask questions. I don't want to get up. Oh, you have to be. Oh my. Okay, very formal. Yeah. No one else is going to ask questions. They're like, nope, I can look it up on Google tonight.
Okay, thank you. When someone is sick, I used to say, I hope you get better or get well soon.
Mm-hmm.
So it is the correct way to say get over?
No. And I'll tell you why. Okay.
Okay.
So get well, let's break it down grammatically. Okay. When we say get well or get better, is well or better a preposition? Okay. Well, if I just say well or better, it's not a preposition. Would you agree? Okay. Get over is. That means, okay, that like I told you, remember, get is used in so many ways, depending on what else you add it to. The phrasal verb get over is for you to recuperarte de algo en específico, okay? So it's transitive. I would have to say what you're getting over, right? So let's say someone gets COVID and it takes a long time for them to recover. You would say, it really took her a long time to get over COVID. It's transitive. I have to have an object. And when I say get better or get well soon, that's talking about additional information. And it's technically not a phrasal verb. They're not prepositions, right? Some people would put it in the category. Like I said, some people consider it a phrasal verb because it's get well as an adverb. But yes, but it's not used in the same way. And definitely if you're comparing it to a transitive one, like get over, you have to have an object to receive it. Mm-hmm. Please come over here to the spotlight for your question. Oh, sorry, you go first. You'll be next in line right after her. Thank you, Paul, for being the guinea pig, the first one to come up here. Like, I will do it live. Go ahead.
Thank you. When you were explaining the Venn diagram and giving the examples between the differences with the physical and figurative,
Yep.
You explained that run out of, it was physical, like he ran out of the library. So what would be the difference between run out of and run away?
Oh, okay. So they both mean the same thing in that specific sense, the physical way. They're just two different options.
Okay.
And if I use of, I'm going to have kind of like transitive, an object
place?
To receive it, the place you're running around. I can just say huyó. Or
he ran away.
He ran away. Salió corriendo. We didn't say where he went, where he left from. One's more specific, and it's going to have an object. It would be transitive. Run away could just be he ran away.
Okay.
Right? Does that make sense?
Yes, it
Yes.
can be a situation or a place.
Yeah, absolutely. You can run away from your problems. Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay.
But I use from. And once I use from, I have to have that other, it becomes transitive. If I just say run away, like if I suddenly started yelling, run away, everybody's going to take off. I didn't tell you where to go or why,
That
right?
would be intransitive.
Yep, it would be intransitive, right? Because it does it, you could just do it and you don't have to depend on anything else. I could say, run away, there's a fire. I don't want to say that because then people might run away. It's it's almost
Emergency.
the weekend. It's an emergency, whatever, right? It depends on whether it's transitive or intransitive, but they technically mean the same thing, right?
Okay.
Now, I would also use run away of like escaping something more than I would use run out of, for example, a child or someone. I did this when I was little with my younger sister. I think we were like 4 and 5 or something. We packed our bags. We loved our parents. We had a great time at home. Don't get me wrong. We just thought it was fun to run away. So we packed our 2 little suitcases and we ran away from home, right? We huimos just for fun because we probably saw it in a movie somewhere, right? Oh my. So someone, obviously a family member down the road, saw us and was like, yeah, we've got to take them back home. We ran away from something or we just ran away, right? In that sense, I wouldn't say I ran out of my home because it would be more specific to the space, like salí corriendo de mi casa porque me di cuenta que dejé las llaves en el coche, blah, 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 right? If I use run away in a way that's intransitive, it's not dependent on something else. It's like huyo, sencillamente, like a runaway kid.
Okay.
Yes?
Thank you.
Yep. Go ahead.
So I was wondering, how can you use light as a phrasal verb? Like can
Light?
You, yeah.
Okay, we'll use it like a grill commonly. You can light up a grill sometimes. We use up too much sometimes, like kind of like we use the word right, like rip it right off, right? But we could say light up a grill. You light up my life. I feel like that's also a song. Light up.
And I was also wondering, set it off. It's also a phrasal verb. And
Set it off.
Uh-huh.
Yes, absolutely.
And what does that mean?
And it's transitive. It depends on how we're using it. But to set something off is like encender al punto de que arranque algo. Okay. Now, it could be setting someone off by making a very bad comment about them, right? Like he was totally calm until I said something about his friend and it set him off. Como de mechita cortita, we say, right? Encendió su ira, for example, right? A firework that takes off. You can set it off by lighting the wick at the bottom of it. Something like that. And it depends on what you're talking about and what you're using, but that would be both separable, set it off, okay? Or set off the firework. I can't let the it hang at the end for that one, okay? And it's also transitive or intransitive? Transitive because it depends on a thing. I can't just say set off. Actually, sorry. It can also be intransitive. Have you ever heard say we set off on a journey? Yeah, see, it's annoying. Yeah, I can't give you all the answers. It's annoying. But if you say set it off, it's in that case, that's the most common use. Yep. Itzel with her notes, of course, the teacher.
I didn't understand take down to record in writing, but what it is.
Apuntar. To take down notes, for example. All right, I want everyone to take down some notes while we're here. It's apuntar, escribir o apuntar, right?
Tomar apuntes.
Yes, tomar apuntes. It's not necessarily, the same as saying writing. Like you wouldn't say I'm taking down a book. I would be physically taking it down off of a shelf, maybe. But I wouldn't, and that's the other physical, like taking something down from the wall, maybe. But it's more like apuntes, notes, because I'm not going to take down a whole book, writing all of it. You just take pieces and apuntes, notes.
So today I have
Taken down. Remember,
down
you can use the verb
the
form.
phrasal verbs course.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay.
Not the course. Oh, wait, did you write the whole course down?
No, but
Basically, you've taken
some
down
of them.
notes for the
Yes.
course. Yes, exactly. Apuntar, los apuntes or notes or whatever that may be. And I was going to say something with that same thing. Oh, remember that a verb can change in any form. The preposition's not going to change if you're using the same. But she said, I have taken down some notes. The verb can change past, future, present, continuous, any form you want. In that case, a past participle, taken, right? Yes, hold on just a sec. Can you bring it over here? Just because of the mic so that they can hear in the session. Yes, go ahead.
My question is, or I used to be confused when when I see a bird,
Mhm.
for example, look.
Look.
I want to lock the door.
Oh, lock.
But,
Okay.
But I sometimes I heard you have to lock down or something like that.
Lockdown. Okay. Yeah.
How,
Yeah.
how do I know how to know
Which one to use?
when you have to use the exact
Preposition.
Yeah.
You're going to hate my answer. Practice, practice, practice. Okay. Which comes from the Swan Princess movie. It really is a matter of practice. That's why I said find situations. If you don't have a way to practice with someone directly, practice watching things on television, looking at the subtitles, listening to them speak. That's very helpful. I will go specifically to this one. Okay. There are occasions when our phrasal verbs can turn into nouns, and you're like, oh my goodness. Okay, that was your question. They can turn into nouns, but most of the time we combine them into one word. Okay. And when it's used as a noun, it's referring to the verb and its use anyway. What do I mean? Okay. We were in a lockdown during 2020, right? Un encierre. Do you agree? Okay. But why? Because we were locked down in our houses and we shouldn't have gone out, right? So to lock down is like encerrar o cerrar algo con muchísima seguridad for something. Now, lock out of. Bruno Mars song, you make me feel like I've been locked out of heaven. Okay. Lock out of is me encerraste algún lugar y me dejaste afuera. So it's really a matter of practice. I am so sorry that I'm giving you
It's
that
very
answer.
annoying and confusing.
It is extremely annoying and obnoxious and confusing. I
But
completely
wanna
agree with you.
thank
Yep. It's really a matter of like practice for it. You know what's helpful too? Try to start changing some of your verbs, your common verbs, to phrasal verbs. Instead of saying, let me think of ones because some of them have to be used with a phrasal verb, like turn off. We don't have another option for that, right? Instead of saying, I will be responsible for this activity. Start saying, I will take over this activity, right? Does that make sense? Yes? Try to switch them out to practice them a little bit more in that way. Go ahead.
When you said the phrasal verb freak out, can you change it for another verb? I mean, freak.
Another verb and then
yeah.
freak?
Yeah.
Yeah, you can change it to any verb without.
Which one?
You mean to mean the same thing?
Yeah.
Yes, flip out. Flip out is like alocarse de la misma manera, como tomar algo de manera muy dramatizado. Like I just told her that we were out of cheese and she flipped out. She freaked out. Informal, but yeah. Now
Only
I
that
can use
verb?
out. What would you say?
Only that, or it
Let
could
me
be
think.
another- Yeah.
Freak out. Yeah, I mean, probably I could think of another one if I sat and really tried to say it.
Yeah.
But for the most part, you can use out with many, many thousands of other verbs, but they're not going to mean the same. Yeah,
Okay.
flip out, freak out, pretty informal. Yep. Okay. B, you're going to be the last question. Go for it.
As we know, you can actually use a noun and turn it into a verb.
Uh-huh.
And that was my question.
Wait,
about the
take a
phrasal
noun
verb.
and turn it
No,
into a verb?
the
Verb and
phrasal
turn into a noun.
verbs that can be turned into
Mhm.
nouns. For example, getaway.
Okay.
You know, we went to a getaway this weekend.
Yep.
you know,
We went
or-
on a getaway. Yeah.
So is there a
We went in
specific-
we can even turn it into adjectives. He got in the getaway car.
Okay.
Yes. So
But-
what's the question with that? How do you learn them?
No. Is there a specific rule? So how can we convert phrasal verbs into nouns?
Well, the only rule behind it is, like I said, for the most part, the tendency is you're going to find it combined into one word when it's turned into an adjective or a noun. Like a getaway car is usually as one word, right? Or a lockdown, usually seen as one word. You can occasionally see it created as one word with a hyphen in the middle, which is a whole nother course you can come to in writing and punctuation that I teach. But the main idea behind that is, would it make sense as a noun? Have you heard it as a noun, like a lockdown, right?
Yeah.
But I can't say a takeoff. Well, I wouldn't normally say that, right? A takeoff. Let me think. A get by. We don't use a get by. That's not a thing, right?
Okay.
But a getaway is.
A
right?
takeout?
So a takeout. Well, yes, because it's as an adjective, because it's become popular. Take out food, right? It's takeout food.
But it's because of usos y costumbres.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
Exactly. It's become some type of a custom that we've created. It's the evolution of language. Good luck. That's why we say 10,000 or more. Yes, just ask it from there really quick and I'll repeat it here. Oh, then yes, he does. I was going to say it fast and I'll ask it. Yeah, go ahead. What about put out what?
What about put out the fire?
Uh-huh.
It's only used that way? Like put
If
out?
it's okay, yes, if it's not something they make a lot of sense. Your questions are very good. We would use it in something that's like in Spanish, we would say encendido, pero no eléctrico. Okay. Not electric. Like a fire, we would put out a fire. Right. And that's something it's electric. It's not the same thing. Right. So you can't say, please put out the light. No.
So firefighters put out fire.
Put out fires. Exactly. But we also in Reyes put out our shoes for the camellos. I mean, the Reyes. Well, the camellos too, y le ponemos pastito, no? We put grass for the camellos, we put it out, and we put our shoes out for the kings, the three kings, or the wise men to give us gifts, right? But in fires, it means apagar algo encendido de llamas, fuego.
A firework
Incendio.
or whatever.
Fireworks, yeah, that have fire on it. Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you.
We could do questions all day, right? What about this? And eventually I'm going to be like, I don't know why we say it that way. All right, guys, thank you so much for this, the time that you've given me. I hope this was very helpful for you, for all of us who are watching us live. I hope this was helpful for you as well. I know it's a lot of information and we could go on for a long time. Please, if you're interested and you'd like to know more about more grammar topics, it's free. Come to my book launch this next Tuesday at 5 p.m. on the 9th. And you'll be able to see more insightful things about some other complex structures and grammar things that you might not understand, and maybe it will be helpful for you. And Brian, would you like to take the floor at the end?
Okay, thank you all for coming, and thank you to all the people that watch this workshop live on Facebook and YouTube. We had some universities that have shared this Facebook Live also. More than 150 people join us virtually.
Wow.
So thank you.
Bravo.
Thank you to everyone.
Good.
And please remember that we have a lot of activities. We expect to have you here more frequently. And please follow us on Facebook so you can keep tracking Lauren's future workshops because she's great.
All of the workshops, not just Lauren's future workshops, but all of the workshops. Yes. What? Keep on tracking. Yeah.
That's right.
Good job. He likes to practice what I was teaching. Good job, Brian. Yes.
Okay, so thank you for coming. Y pues bueno, yo soy Brian Flores, soy el coordinador de programas culturales y educativos de este centro y pues esperamos verlos aquí. Muchas gracias.
Muchas gracias.